Welcome to the Thriving in Motherhood podcast. I'm here today with Anna Kornick. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Really excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Jessica Jackson, and this is the new way to thrive in motherhood by leaning into who you are, what you love, your unique family situation, and personal mission to create a life that you actually want to live. I want to invite you to join me in saying no to the life of the exhausted supermom, burnout, victim thinking, being pulled in so many directions, suffering through survival mode, or being lost in motherhood, and say yes to building strong families and moving forward on our greatest goals in order to create a fulfilling life that we are excited to wake up to each day and become a soaring mother. This is the Thriving in Motherhood podcast. Wonderful to talk with you today. I am excited to get to know you better and also hear some of your expertise about time management. So why don't you just kick us off and let us know what motherhood looks like for you right now?
Sure. So I am a mom to two little girls, Camilla and Elizabeth. They are 6 and 4. Camilla actually just graduated from kindergarten. We're getting ready for all things summer right now. My two girls and my husband, Scott, and we all live in South Louisiana, kind of close to New Orleans. And, I'd say right now, motherhood looks a lot like just navigating newness. And I think that that's always going to be a little bit of what motherhood looks like as my girls continue to grow. But I'd say one of the biggest things that I've recognized recently is that Camilla, being 6, finishing out her year in kindergarten, her needs, her emotional needs, her social, her friendship needs have just gotten so much more complex. And it's really challenging me in a brand new way to show up with her in a way that really connects and prepares her for the next stage of her life. And so I'd say that, it's easy to say motherhood right now looks like running to dance practice and picking up socks off the floor. But it's also a lot of really introspective looks at how should I approach this, knowing the long-term impact that the way I show up is going to have on my girls.
Yeah, that's such a good point because I know that for me, it's been really interesting watching my kids grow and evolve over time. And that 6, 7 is one of those it's start of another really big spurt and how they feel and experience the world. And it really just puts me on my toes. It's incredible.
It is. It's so different. With my 4-year-old, it's brush your teeth. Have you brushed your teeth? It's so much more let's keep things on track. Let me teach you the routines and the habits. But then this Camilla, she's just opening up this brand new world of things to navigate. And I know that this is just the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. So what for you have been some defining moments in your motherhood journey?
Gosh, when you think about defining moments, I think we have this negativity bias whenever we tend to look back a lot of times. And we look back on the things like, oh, wow, the first thing that comes to mind was the time that I realized that I was pushing Camilla into something too soon that she wasn't ready for. And you think about, I look back very specifically on the time that I took her to her very first dance lesson, and we showed up late. Time management coach showed up late. We had to change her clothes. The lobby was complete and total chaos, and she screamed and cried. And I just remember thinking in that moment, oh my gosh, I am completely failing right now. I did every single thing wrong. Now she's afraid of dance lessons. She's not ready for this yet. What am I doing? And, it really caused me to take a beat and to think okay, what is the purpose of this? What can we do differently? What can I do better to show up for her? But, I'd also say that as important as that moment, it always reminds me of the movie Inside Out and the core memories of those things that didn't go so well. There are also some really awesome core memories of when things did go well. I'll never forget the day that I finished my book. I wrote the last words of my book, Time Management Essentials. I submitted them to my to my editor, I got a cake that had the number of words in my book on the cake to celebrate. And I just remember my girls just being along, like being next to me while I'm holding the cake. And they're more excited about the cake than the book, of course. But just thinking about how what I had just created isn't just a legacy for me in the way that I can impact people, but it's a legacy for them too. And I think that it's important that our kids see and are involved in the work that we do, because work is a good thing. For all the rap that work-life balance gets, pulling us away from work and more into life, like work is also really important. And kind of being that example for them so that they can see what good work can look like. That just felt like a really, I don't know, that just felt like a really, I don't know, proud, defining, cool moment to share with them.
Well, and I think what's so neat is a lot of times as moms, we talk about it in such a negative way, like mom
Yeah.
guilt, like all the time that I spent writing this book and what did that, all these things like that. But the kids are so proud of us, right? They
Yeah.
love to watch us be successful. They love to watch us hit those milestones, just like we love watching them hit their milestones. And so
Yeah.
I think that's like just such a beautiful way to celebrate with them and bring them into the process of what you've been working on.
Yeah. And, celebration is also a good thing. Celebration is
Mm-hmm.
really important because every time we celebrate a win, it tells our brain that, oh, that is a good thing. What you just did is a good thing. Let's do more of that thing. And a lot of times we, especially as moms, we're like, no, you don't have to celebrate me. It's fine. Like we don't have to make a big fuss over it. And you don't have to make a huge fuss, but being an example to your kids that celebration is good, that's good for them too. It teaches them to celebrate themselves and to be proud of themselves, not because someone else says, I'm proud of you, but to teach them to be proud of themselves and to celebrate their wins. It's really cool.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I know like for me, we've got the Thriving Motherhood Planner, and every month, every 30 days, we're writing down what did you accomplish? What did you learn? What did you discover? And every month I sit down and write for a family yearbook, right? Like writing what happened and what were the things they did and narrating the pictures that we took of things that they were working on. And so celebrating can be a cake, but celebrating can also just be like pausing and acknowledging and going back and looking at our photo books and talking through the things that have happened.
I love that. And that feels so good too.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's a thing that helps build momentum.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what are some things that you've had to, like a lesson that has come for you over and over again? And maybe in the line of time management, because that is kind of your expertise, but let's talk about that. I mean, also a time management geek here. So, let's talk time management.
I love it. So, one of the biggest lessons that I had to learn really early on was that time management, the systems that we have in our lives to manage our time, to keep ourselves on track, they are not like a crock pot that we can set and forget. Okay. Time management is not something that we can figure out once and then we're done. And early on in my motherhood journey, I remember we would finally get into a groove. We would finally get into a rhythm with bedtimes and sleep times. And this is when I get work done. And this is when nap time is. But what happens is that your kids get older. They change. And suddenly the rhythms and routines that once served you no longer work in this next season of life. And when what used to work doesn't work anymore, it can make you feel like a failure. It can make you feel like you're not doing it right. And it's like you might continue to try and fit that square peg into that round hole. And I see this all the time with women after they become moms, because originally what worked for them when they were either in their single girl living alone life or their newlywed life before they had kids, maybe they felt like a go-getter who just, I rock my to-do list, I manage my time well. But what worked for me then isn't working for me now. And you know what? That's okay. That's more than okay. That's to be expected. not only are our kids constantly growing and changing and shifting, but we are too as parents and as people. And so it's really not fair to ourselves to think that we're going to figure out one time management system or way of doing life that's going to work for us forever. And that was a hard lesson for me to learn. I'll be honest, like adaptability is not one of my like top strengths. I want to have the plan and have the plan be set. And so motherhood has absolutely been a constant lesson in adaptability for me. And so I'd say like overcoming that my desire for just control and for I don't want to say rigidity, but just to have a plan and for that to be the plan. That's been a lot of work. That's been a lot of work for me. And I know I'm not alone. But fortunately, whenever you have the basics of time management in place and when you know yourself really well and you're clear on your vision and your values, it makes that evolution so much easier to manage.
Yeah, I completely agree. And there's this element of there's principles that we follow now instead of specific practices.
Yes.
And I think like when you can make that shift, because like for a long time, like before I became a mom, I was a Franklin Covey user, 2 pages a day kind of person.
Yes.
Now,
oh my
like,
gosh.
Yeah, that doesn't work. Like very quickly, I realized it took me about 2 years of completely floundering in motherhood to realize that was never going to work for me again.
No.
At least it hasn't yet in the first 12 years of my motherhood. And, but that there were very clear and specific practices, like principles that I could hold on to that would help with the ebb and the flow.
Yeah.
And, even with time management, like you're talking about changing with a 6-year-old, like I got 12-year-olds, that and 10-year-old that read way later than I stay up at night now. So those like tuck kids into bed at a good time and have the evening to yourself doesn't exist anymore, right? Or the wake up super early. I'm pregnant, right? So the wake up super early to get things done right now, that doesn't work anymore. So life is constantly, like you're saying, shifting as not just your kids change, your family changes. So let's talk about some of the principles that you have found work well for time management as you have experienced the shifts in motherhood.
Absolutely. I'd say number one most important thing that I do each week is a weekly planning session. And, when you think about principle in practice, this is kind of a combination because it's the principle of I take time to intentionally plan my week, but the practice has evolved over time. The practice is always changing. The agenda for the weekly planning session shifts, but the principle remains the same. And so having that 30 minutes a week to get a bird's eye view of my week ahead, identify the potential obstacles, identify the opportunities to see what the tough spots are, to plan meals, identify transition time, make the grocery list, check the weather, even though right now in Louisiana, every day is just hot. All of that is what enables our week, not just my week, but my entire family's week to move so much smoother. It's just better. It flows because we have a plan. And you might think, well, what's the point of having a plan for your week when something is going to throw it off? And what I say to that is life will always throw us curveballs. There will always be something unexpected. You'll get the call from daycare that one of your kiddos has the fever or something will happen, something will come up. But when you have a plan, when you have a track to get back on, getting knocked off the tracks, it gives you somewhere to go. It gives you something to go back to rather than grasping at straws and trying to figure out what's next. So first thing, probably most important thing is that weekly planning session because that's where you set the stage for everything.
Yeah, I completely agree. I any week that we miss a weekly planning session, it feels off.
Yeah.
And not just for me, like I do it by myself, but I also do it with my spouse. I'm assuming you have some sort of a sync up conversation, do you?
We do, of course. And the coolest thing is that a couple years ago, I delegated our meal planning and grocery shopping to my husband. Like that's an agreement. That's just part of the way that we manage our family. And so after my weekly planning session, it's kind of like a pass the baton. So that he can put together the meal plan for the week. I mean, we have pretty consistent meals from week to week, so it's nothing crazy. But just knowing that my initial planning hands off to him so that he can take it from there and take the kids to the grocery store with him if he wants, that it just makes our week move so much smoother.
Love that. So you aren't sitting down together necessarily for a super long time.
Not really. And sometimes I don't even really sit down at all, which is kind of unexpected. I think a lot of times when people hear weekly planning session, you kind of picture this formal time where you sit down and you follow these steps. But truthfully, I've gotten to the point after doing this for so many years where I know the points that need to be hit during the weekly planning session. I might do part of it standing up at the kitchen island on Sunday morning. I might do another section of it Sunday afternoon. And then right before, while the kids are in the bathtub, I might go check the weather and pull their items for the week. And so it's probably 30 minutes total, but it's not always all in one sitting. And it doesn't have to be. It can look different for everybody because a lot of us don't even have 30 minutes to sit down uninterrupted. So don't let that be a deterrent.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's a great point. Yeah, I think I normally start do 10 minutes in the morning, a little bit during some quiet time in the afternoon, and finish it off in the evening and talk to my husband for 5 minutes to make sure we're on the same page.
Boom. Exactly.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so what's another principle that you like to follow?
Gosh, there are two parts of my day that are absolutely critical. They're like the bookends of my day. Having a Workday startup routine and then a Workday shutdown routine at the very end of the day. So I believe that there are 5 essential routines that really help us thrive. One of those is that weekly planning session. But 2 of that 5 include that startup routine and that shutdown routine because I work from home. Okay. My commute, which is what most people who work out of the home, that commute from home to the office or from drop off to the office is typically where people shift their mindset from not work time to work time. And that physical transition is what helps people move into focused work time, focused work brain. Okay. But when you work from home and your commute is from your kitchen to your home office, you don't exactly have that physical built-in time to create that mindset shift. And so that Workday startup routine, it's just a few minutes with the same steps pretty much over and over again. Sit down, open up the calendar, open up Asana, which is my task management tool of choice, open up Slack, check it for team messages, confirm my most important items for the day, make sure my water cup is filled, boom, Workday startup. Because when we connect a physical sequence of events with a specific mindset, so of work focus, that sequence of events triggers that focus in our brains. And so that's a really important part of my morning and my work. The steps might change over time. They don't always look the same. But what's important is that intentional shift from not work brain to work brain. But then at the end of the day, we've got to make the shift right back. Because when my workday ends, and for most of us, we finish the last thing. Sometimes the kids are running in the door or calamity is just breaking loose. And we just get up and we walk out. And what happens when we just stand up from our work and walk away from it is that we're leaving all of these open loops running and cycling through our brains. It's a principle called the Kornick effect, which tells us that our brains actually have a preference for things that are unfinished. So if you've ever laid in bed at night and cycled through your to-do list, that's the Kornick effect in action. And so you can actually trick your brain into thinking that everything is finished by using a shutdown routine. And it's really as simple as, okay, before I get up from my laptop or before I finish my work, I need to take a look at what was accomplished today compared to what I plan to accomplish today. Based on what's complete, what is being transferred to tomorrow? What's heading to another day? What's on the agenda for tomorrow? Let me get a preview of the day. Because when you mentally close these loops, you're able to step away from work and into life, into your personal life, feeling more present because your brain has associated those tasks with being complete. Even if they're not technically complete, your brain kind of starts to think they are. It always makes me think of Mr. Rogers. Okay. Do you remember Mr.
Absolutely.
Rogers?
Yes, of course. Child of the 90s for me.
Yes.
Absolutely. I know Mr. Rogers.
So when he would come inside from being out in the neighborhood, he would take off his outside jacket and he would put on his cozy cardigan. And then he would take off his outside shoes and put on his inside shoes. That's a Workday shutdown routine. He was performing a series of physical steps that shifted his mindset to being home. And we can do that same thing. And I cannot live without that Workday shutdown routine. I notice a huge difference when I skip it because I'm still cycling through all of the to-dos from the day while I'm at dinner.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful, especially, for working moms in particular, to be able to manage and kind of switch your brain so you can actually be present with your kids and with your family and to rest so you don't get burned out. But I also think that principle is so powerful. That's why a lot of people have like kitchen shutdown routines, right?
Yes.
Or like as I finish homeschool for the day, why we, kind of have a wrap up there. So I think like if you're not a working mom, this principle is so powerful. This is why we have principles and practices, right? But the principle is so powerful because we can apply it to anytime we're shifting kind of domains and helping ourselves get into the right headspace for the next thing.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you pointed that out because it's not just something for a working mom. All moms are working moms. The work just looks different.
Or it looks different during the times, like maybe you don't work like a 9 to 5, right? So but we can just apply that principle to the different parts of our day, even if it's not quite as neat and tidy.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Okay. So what are the other 2 parts of your principles? We've covered 3 of them.
Yeah. So the other two essential routines that I can't live without are kind of what we think of as the OG, the original routines. Most of the time when people think about routines, they think about their morning routine or they think about their evening routine. And so those are really important because for all the reasons why we know that they're important. Our morning routine is what sets the tone for our day. And as moms, the way that we approach our morning and the way that we show up in the morning impacts the way that our kids move through the day because we set the tone. And so having a really intentional morning routine enables us to move through the day with intention. And it's the same thing for our evening routine. It's setting ourselves up for a solid night's sleep. The CDC recommends that as adults, we should get between 7 and 9 hours of sleep a night. And most of the time when I say that to a mom, they just start laughing. And I get it because my 4-year-old is going through a time right now where she is waking up every single night in the middle of the night and keeping us up for a little bit. But without really prioritizing getting into that place of good sleep, we're doing ourselves a huge disservice by not prioritizing our sleep. And I like to say that good sleep is one of the most underrated productivity hacks because when we're well rested, we process faster. We make better decisions. We are more responsive than we are reactive. And that evening routine is what sets you up for the best morning routine. They really go hand in hand. And, I feel like morning routines get a bad rap sometimes. Let me know if you agree, because I feel like on the internet, there's like the millionaire mom's morning routine where you do all of these ridiculous steps. And there are just so many examples of these rigid routines out there. And maybe you try one of them because you want to be a millionaire mom with a morning routine. And when it doesn't work for you and you fall completely flat, you can feel like a failure because you're like, well, why doesn't this work for me? And the truth is that routines have to be incredibly personal based on your life and where you are right now. There was a time that I was diligent and consistent with doing Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning. Highly recommend checking out that
book.
Yeah,
it's an awesome step. Those with the scribes, what the 6 steps or whatever his
savers.
Yes. That's it.
Scribing is it's one of the S's in there. Yeah. I was a pro at doing that routine.
Yeah.
And until January 24th, 2019, when my daughter was born. And after that, all bets were off. it was like you with your Franklin Covey, your 2 days, the 2 day spread, like, or the 2 page spread, like
Yeah.
it
Doesn't
just
work anymore.
doesn't work anymore. And that's okay. It doesn't mean I'm a failure at mornings. It just means that I had to now create one that worked for that season. And I'll tell you, one of my biggest hacks, and I always feel so icky about the word hacks, but one of my favorite methods is to create two versions of your morning routine. To have a bare minimum morning routine and a best case scenario morning routine. Because a lot of times the only routine that we have in mind is that best case scenario. I want to get up and I want to meditate and I want to have quiet time and I want to run 3 miles and I want to do my skincare and I want to make eggs and bacon and I want to, we get in this idea that we want to do all of these things to have the best morning routine ever. And then when we wake up like 3 minutes too late and we realize I'm not going to be able to do any of this, so we don't do any of it. I'm not going to be able to do all of it, so I'm not going to do any of it. We get this very all or nothing mindset. So I love to have my clients design two different versions of their routine. The best case scenario and the bare minimum. Because when life happens, and it inevitably will, having that bare minimum, it gives you something to fall back on and something to rely on to maintain some kind of consistency.
Yeah, I love that. There's a principle I heard years ago. I hosted a summit in the early 2020s. I don't know the year specifically, but 2021 maybe. And they called it, one of the guests I talked to called it having a floor and a ceiling on your habits and on your routines. But it is a really life-changing principle. I think especially for moms because of that all or nothing mindset we all fall into, especially coming from a background of being like high performing not moms, right? Like doing things well before motherhood and you're like, I don't know how to navigate this new world.
Yeah. I've never done this and been a mom before. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so what is with a 4 and a 6-year-old at this phase of your life working from home, what does your morning and evening routines look like?
Oh, great question. So right now, morning routine for me starts at about 4:45 when the alarm goes off. Excuse me. And I never thought I would be someone who would wake up that early. I thought it was crazy. I thought it was insane. But I am in a season of life where I am prioritizing fitness and moving my body every day. And if I want to be consistent, I know it has to happen in the mornings. And that's just where we are right now. And so 4:45 alarm goes off. I'm getting dressed. I'm putting on my workout clothes. I'm heading out the door to go to the gym where I meet my accountability partner, Amanda. She has 2 6-year-old girls who are besties with Camilla. So we're mom friends and accountability partners. And I get in a workout. I make sure I get home at around 6:30 or so. Sometimes I take a quick shower and sometimes I just sit on the back porch and drink coffee with my husband until the girls get up at 7. That's one of our morning milestones. The girls get up at 7 and then we go straight into, they share a room. So that kind of makes the process easier. But they make their beds. I have clothes laid out on Sunday night as a part of my weekly planning session. So we go straight to, make their, whoop. There we go. Sorry. Make their beds, put on their outfits, they go brush their teeth, and we're just hanging out with them all throughout. Go straight to breakfast. We have an ALEXA reminder that goes off at a specific time that tells us it's time to put on shoes because we can really get caught up in conversation and having fun around the breakfast table, and having that reminder just enables us to kind of be all in with our conversation because ALEXA will remind us. And so they're typically my 6-year-old is on the bus by 8:15, 8:20, and I'll typically go and I'll do daycare drop off for my 4-year-old, and then I'm back home doing maybe a quick shower, and then I'm typically at my desk for my Workday startup routine by around 9:30 or so. So that's pretty much what our mornings look like. That's the rhythm. That's the routine.
That's wonderful. Well, and I think what's so great here is like some of these principles, right? You've got some anchors to your day that everyone, you call them something else. Did you call them milestones?
Oh, milestones. Yeah.
You call them, I call them anchors. You call them milestones. Okay. But yes, you've got your milestones, your anchors that again will be different for each of us, but like very clear. And so you have a routine and your kids also have a routine.
Yeah,
Like, and
yeah.
that's so important. A lot of times we just focus on one or the other and it doesn't quite work.
Right. Well, we actually worked together with the girls to create their routine. We sat down one evening and we were talking about, what are the things that we need to do in the morning to have a good day? And one of them was like, brush our teeth and brush our hair. And my 4-year-old was, I need a bow, like all of those little things. And so we actually they came and sat by me at my computer and I made a little, like a printable to put on the wall with little pictures that represented their morning routine. And it's on the wall in our bathroom, in the kids' bathroom, and it's on the wall in their bedroom. And so it's really cool because whenever things start to go off track, like maybe making the bed turned into having a dance party, we're able to say, oh, wait, Elizabeth, what's the next part of our routine? And it's right there on the wall. And it's so cool to get them involved in the process because she's like, oh, we need to make our bed.
So this theme keeps coming up. I just talked with someone a few weeks ago, did an interview about creating play spaces for our kids.
Yeah.
And one of the principles is it's not going to work unless they're involved in creating,
Yes.
designing, and organizing the space. So
Yes.
it works for play spaces. And we're talking now about time management. It's not going to work unless the kids are involved in
Yeah.
designing their day, their own routines, their schedule. They've got to be a
Yeah.
part of this process.
Absolutely. I mean, the older they get, I mean, there was a time when just dictating it would have been fine, but not with 4 and 6.
And not with 10 or 8 or 11 either.
Definitely not. Definitely not. And you start to see their little personalities too. Do you have a rebel? Do you have a questioner? Do you have one who's wants to uphold every single step of the routine because that's what they, inherently need to do? So it's been really cool to see how their unique selves are emerging through going through these routines.
Well, and I think your attitude towards it is so positive because I think a lot of times you're like, why isn't everyone just falling in line? So, how do you manage? Let's talk about that because time management with other people around you, what does that look like?
Oh my goodness. Well, it's such a great question because time management also can't happen in a vacuum because you can make the most beautifully orchestrated plans in the world and then something else is going to happen. Kids getting out of the house is the prime example. I mean, how long does it take to put on shoes? Am I right? And I think that time management with other people, especially with kids, starts by being confident in the plan or the routine or the rhythm that you have in mind and building in buffer, kind of expecting the unexpected to a degree, and knowing that just because it took them 2 minutes to put on their shoes that one time doesn't mean that it's going to be 2 minutes every single time. And so that's where I love that you use the word anchors. That's where I think milestones in a routine are really helpful because instead of it creating a rigid step-by-step routine, you get to flow in between the milestones. And maybe things don't happen in exactly the right order, but as long as they happen, that's the point. You have to go back to the purpose. Is the purpose of a routine to follow it step by step, or is the purpose of a routine to create a feeling of confidence or preparedness for the day? And when you keep in mind the purpose, how you get there doesn't really matter as much, which can be really tough to wrap your head around when maybe if you were a lifelong, type A overachiever type, which I feel I know what that's like. Motherhood has really required me to, like I said, be more flexible and remember, like, what is the point? What is the purpose? Because that's more important than how we get there. Yeah.
No, I think that is gold because the reality is I think a lot of times we say, well, if I have a routine, then I can be patient. Or if we've get these things done, then I won't be yelling at my kids and we'll be calm. And I think the reality is kind of like you're saying, okay, actually I could still be calm and not yell even when things go off the rails.
Yeah.
And we can work on building in some more margins so I don't feel so stressed and frantic and running around like a crazy person all the time. But I need to remember the point of this, and I can still choose that, whether things fall ABC perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And giving yourself the space for trial and error, because, right now, as we're recording this, we're heading to the end of the school year. And typically, end of the school year into summer is a time of big transition. Routines change, schedules change, and then the same thing happens all over again in the fall when we start back. And as you are shifting your routines, whether you're creating a new one for the first time or you're shifting it because seasons are changing, understand and accept that the very first routine that you create may not be the one that sticks. Trial and error is where you really figure out what's going to work and what's not. I was telling someone just this morning that whenever you are implementing a new routine, pay attention to the friction and the frustration. Because when you pay attention to the friction and the frustration, it helps you figure out what to shift and what to tweak. For the longest time, so we have a mudroom area kind of like by our back door with baskets for the girls' shoes. That's where all of their shoes stay. They come in the house, they put their shoes in their little baskets. But socks was the whole sock thing was like a really big problem. They have to wear socks to school, so that's not an option to just get rid of socks. And it kept like the whole putting on of the socks was completely throwing our morning routine off, because what would happen is we would finish breakfast, we would make our way to the back door, we would sit down to start putting on shoes, and there were never socks. And so we would have to run all the way across the house to go get the socks. And it's like, okay, so this is a friction point. Something as simple as socks is a friction point. So what do we do about this? Well, one option could have been putting all of their socks in the mudroom. But we didn't want to do that. There wasn't really any room for that. And so I asked myself, what can I stack in the routine so that we bring the socks with us out of the room? Again, it's so simple. And so it just turned into whenever I leave the girls' bedroom in the morning to go to the bathroom to, help them brush teeth and fix hair, I make sure I have socks in my hands. And that's it. That's literally it. Something that was causing so much chaos right before running out the door can be fixed by asking yourself, okay, when does it make sense for me to grab socks and just carry them around with me until we get to the kitchen? I mean, it's silly, but something as small as that can completely transform the flow of your morning.
Well, and I think what's so important is when I work with moms, it sounds like when you work with moms too, the problem that I think a lot of women have is like, okay, the season's changing, so we got to start from scratch.
Oh,
And it's like, no, 1 degree shifts. 1 degree shifts. That's all. So it's like we're not in speedboats anymore. Like you by yourself was a little speedboat. Now you've got like a cruise liner. And so you got to like do little bits, because not only you're asking yourself to change habits, but you're also then asking children to change habits and your spouse to change habits and the flow of the day. And so I have just found season to season, like as much as we can keep the same, the better. And then it is those just tiny little refinements, those tiny tweaks that make all the difference.
Yeah, tiny changes. And you think about a dress rehearsal too. Any play, presentation, whatever is going to have some type of a dress rehearsal before opening day. If you are trying to implement a new routine for the summer or for the new school year, give yourself a mental dress rehearsal with that new routine, with that 1 degree shift. Maybe you want to physically walk through the routine if that's something that helps you. One of my clients had so much trouble sticking to her routine in the morning that I recommended her jotting her routine down and putting it on a clipboard and carrying the clipboard around with her in the morning, just like a coach, because that way she was able to have it with her and constantly refer to it to stay on track. That walkthrough, that mental practice, that sets you up for success when it's time to make it happen for real. So don't discount the mental walkthrough and the dress rehearsal.
Well, and how you present it. With how you talk with your family, like how do you, because I know that's a big part of what I do, but I'd love to hear your take on it. How do you get your family excited about these things?
That's great, because we're about to step into that season, shifting from the school to summer. And, really, truly, first it starts with you, the mom, getting clear on what the changes are and what changes you would like to see. Because if you realize, like, oh, it's going to be a lot easier if we shift this in our routine, you identify that first. Because then you can approach it from the perspective of, hey, it is almost summertime, and we want to have like the best mornings ever, right? Do you want to have the best mornings ever? And who doesn't want to have the best mornings ever? Okay, how can we have the best mornings ever? Like, what, Camilla, what would make the mornings the best ever for you? And she would probably say ice cream or popsicles. And I'd be like, I hear you. I love that. But what else? Just kind of getting them involved, getting them excited, and then saying, let's work on a new summer routine for the wall. Because that's something that they would get excited about. So I would say, think about what's going to motivate your kids. Because you know your kids better than I do. I know that like doing arts and crafts is going to completely motivate her. And we're probably not even going to do a printable. We're probably going to hand draw it or color it this time around because that's where they are. So think about, one, what you would like to see so that you can guide and be that guide. And then second, think about what's going to motivate your kids to be involved and to be a part of it rather than it just being something that you're handing down to them and saying, this is what we're going to do now. Because that triggers all kinds of rebel behavior in some of your more like rebel kids. Like, no, you can't tell me what to do with a routine. But if you get them in on it, just like we said, if you get them in on it, then that's the ticket.
Yeah. And it's like this marketing principle. When people help create, they own. They, take partnership in. And so, love that. All right. We're going to wrap things up. It has been so good talking with you. But what would be final, most important time management principle that you want to leave with moms to help encourage them?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of noise out there about how to do time management. Productivity hacks and time management tips and tricks are a dime a dozen. But what I would love for you to remember is that good time management, truly good time management, does not start on the pages of your planners or on a habit tracker or on a productivity app. It starts by getting crystal clear about what matters most to you, your vision, your values, because when you are rooted in your vision for the future, what you want for yourself, what you want for your family, and when you're clear on those things that matter most to you, your values, every single decision about time management becomes so much easier. And that's what I want for you. I want time management to feel easy. I want it to feel effortless. I want it to flow. And when you're clear on what matters most, it does.
Absolutely. So where can people find you, Anna?
Yeah. So thank you again so much, Jessica, for having me. This has been so much fun. So I would be so excited if you popped open your podcast app, wherever you're listening right now, and searched for It's About Time, because my podcast, It's About Time, has new episodes that go live every Monday with either a time management strategy that you can start implementing now or an interview with another go-getter about how they're getting things done. If you like to hang out on social media, come find me on Instagram, because that's where I like to hang out. So I'd say those are the two best places to find me, and I would love to hear from you.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing your, not just principles and expertise, but also some of the behind the scenes of what it's been like for you in motherhood.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity.
If you like today's episode and you want some more hands-on help with your time management and planning a week you can win, I want to invite you to join and watch the free workshop, Plan a Week You Can Win, that will guide you through what it takes very practically, step by step, to set yourself up for success so that you can stop working from a never-ending to-do list, feeling totally burned out, and also start ending every week where you checked everything off that you cared about, where you did the things that you wanted to do, where you get to spend more time doing the things you want to do and less time doing the things you don't want to do. If that's interesting you can go to thrivingandmotherhoodpodcast.com/win, and it will guide you. I will guide you through the step-by-step process to plan a successful week that you can actually win.
Where you are planted, watch the blossoms grow.